The 401k wasn't born as a retirement solution. It was born as a footnote. Section 4.01, subsection K of the Internal Revenue Code of 1978, a tax deferral mechanism created specifically to help corporate executives reduce their income tax burden on deferred bonuses. That was the entire purpose. Nothing more. A benefits consultant named Ted Benna was working to help a bank lower the tax liability its senior executives faced on their bonus compensation. He discovered that deferring the cash payout could significantly reduce that tax exposure. He brought the concept to his client. They passed on it, worried that once federal authorities recognized how much tax revenue was being bypassed, the provision would be eliminated. After being turned down, Benna convinced his own employer to adopt the structure, and that decision launched the very first 401k savings plan in 1981. Years later, he referred to what it became as a monster. His words, "The system is too complex. There are too many investment options and people are making decisions they don't understand." Meanwhile, a 2026 report from the National Institute on Retirement Security revealed that the median working age American has managed to set aside just $1,000 toward retirement. Not $1,000 per year of retirement. $1,000 total. The figure Americans believe they need to retire comfortably in 2026 is $1.46 million. That distance between $1,000 and $1.46 million is not the result of bad luck. It is an engineered outcome. And today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how that engineering operates. Here is what I'm committing to for the next 30 minutes. I'm not going to argue that the 401k is inherently corrupt. What I am going to show you are three structural mechanisms. I'm calling them the three locks that mathematically guarantee most people will retire with dramatically less than they anticipate, even when they follow every instruction in the brochure. And I'm going to show you what the people operating this system quietly understand that most participants are never intended to figure out. Before getting into that, I want to give you one mental framework I'll keep returning to throughout this video because it puts every number I'm about to present into context in a way that actually sticks. In the late 1800s, coal companies across Appalachia constructed entire towns from the ground up. Workers lived in company-owned housing, paid rent directly to the company, purchased food, clothing, and medicine at the company store, and received their wages not in standard currency but in company scrip-e, tokens that could only be redeemed within the company's own closed system. It was a perfectly engineered loop. You earned from the company, and every dollar you spent found its way back to the company. You weren't enslaved. You could theoretically walk away, but leaving was complicated, expensive, and the system was deliberately structured to make staying feel like the easier choice. The term that eventually described this arrangement was debt peonage. The design ensured you owed enough to the company that departure was functionally impossible. Hold that image in mind. Because in 1981, without anyone fully grasping the implications, individual participation in stock markets through 401k plans helped ignite the high-growth period on Wall Street through the 1980s and gave rise to asset management giants including Fidelity, Vanguard, BlackRock, and dozens of others. By the mid-1980s, the mutual fund industry had expanded many times over, along with a growing class of well-compensated professionals selling those funds and collecting substantial management fees in return. And in 1980, 38% of private sector workers in America held defined benefit pensions, guaranteed monthly income for life, funded and managed entirely by their employer. Today, that figure sits at roughly 15%. Welcome to the company store. That phrase will keep returning, not as a conspiracy theory, but as a systems-level diagnosis. Because every problem I'm about to show you shares the same underlying architecture. You are operating inside a system designed by others, optimized to benefit others, and from which you cannot easily exit without facing a financial penalty. That is the structure, and understanding the structure is how you stop being shaped by it. In a few minutes, I'll share a number related to forgotten retirement accounts that will genuinely catch you off guard. But first, I need to show you something about the figures everyone is already looking at, because they are doing something very deliberate to your understanding of reality. The average 401k balance at the close of 2025 was $146,400, according to Fidelity data covering 26,000 corporate plans and more than 24 million participants. Financial media ran with that headline. Record highs? Retirement readiness on the rise. $146,000. Not spectacular, not alarming, but the average balance was dramatically higher than the median balance of $34,400. The median, of course, is the midpoint, AK, the figure below which exactly half of all account holders fall. $146,000 versus $34,000. Same data set. Two entirely different stories about the same group of people. The average gets pulled upward by top earners, executives and high-income contributors who have been maximizing their contributions for 2 decades. Those individuals are doing fine. Their balances distort the average for everyone below them. The headline reports the average. Your retirement depends on your actual balance. Nationally, in 2024, the average 401k balance was $148,000 compared to a median of $38,176. That nearly 4-to-1 gap illustrates precisely why averages can feel disconnected from lived experience. Now look at the group closest to retirement. The median retirement savings for Americans between the ages of 55 and 64 is $185,000. They need $1.46 million. They have $185,000. That is not a savings gap. That is a retirement cliff. And approximately 29% of those surveyed reported having no retirement savings whatsoever. Nearly two-thirds of current retirees, around 64% dollars, said the United States is experiencing a genuine retirement crisis. Here is the cognitive shift I need you to sit with, because it reframes everything that follows. You might assume the core problem is that Americans simply aren't saving enough. That's accurate. And it is also precisely the narrative the system wants you working from, because it places the entire burden of responsibility on the individual worker and removes every ounce of pressure from the structural design itself. The actual problem, the one this video is really about, is that even the people who do everything correctly, who contribute from every paycheck for 25 years, who never make an early withdrawal, who never skip a contribution, mobiles, are still subject to 3 structural extraction mechanisms that quietly and mathematically reduce what they will ultimately have available. Let me walk you through the 3 locks. Lock number 1 is fees. And I'm not going to be vague about this because vagueness is precisely how the system sustains itself. Over a lifetime, fees can cost a median income two-earner household nearly $155,000 and consume close to 1/3 of their total investment returns. That figure comes from research by Demos. 1/3 of your returns gone before you ever see them. Not lost to the market, not paid in taxes, extracted by the system. Let me do this math in a way that actually registers. Take $100,000 invested over 30 years at a 7% annual return. With fees of 0.5%, that account grows to approximately $574,000. With fees of 1.5%, it grows to only around $432,000. That is a $142,000 difference. Funds that vanished entirely into fee structures. $142,000. Same market, same return, same time horizon, same contributions. The only variable is 1 percentage point in annual fees. 1% per year on your monthly statement translates to something like $1.50 on every $100 of balance. It appears invisible. Over 30 years, it becomes $142,000. The U.S. Department of Labor's own figures illustrate this even more starkly. $10,000 invested at 7% over 20 years becomes $227,000 at 0.5% in fees, and only $163,000 at 1.5% in fees. A single percentage point difference in fees and expenses reduces your retirement account balance by 28%, and those are only the visible fees. 401k fees fall into 3 distinct categories: investment fees, administrative fees, and individual service fees. Investment fees are the expense ratios embedded inside the mutual funds themselves. Administrative fees cover record keeping, legal compliance, and auditing functions. Individual service fees apply to things like taking a loan against your account or accessing advisory services. If you work at a smaller company, elevated fees can steadily erode your savings. For small plans, average fees can range from 1.5% to 2% annually. A 1% gap in annual fees costs approximately $469,000 over a 30-year career on a $200,000 portfolio with $10,000 in annual contributions. That figure exceeds twice the original balance, flowing into fee layers that many participants are never fully aware of. Here is where the psychology becomes genuinely troubling. Many investment professionals point out that 401k fees are concealed in plain sight. Plan administrators don't send annual invoices showing you exactly what you're paying for plan management and services. They don't break fees out as line items on your statement either. Instead, fees are reflected through reduced net returns. You open your statement. Your balance went up. You feel reassured. Somewhere between the market's actual return and the number printed on your statement, fees were already quietly extracted. There is no line item, no invoice, no moment where you consciously authorize the payment. The money comes off the top before a number is ever displayed to you. There is a government-required document sitting in your email archive or in your onboarding materials from when you started your current position. It's called the 404A 5 Fee Disclosure Notice. It is legally mandated to inform you that fees can substantially reduce your retirement savings. A study by the FINRA Investor Education Foundation found that investors with the lowest financial literacy scores pay fees more than 10 times higher than those with the highest literacy scores. 10 times. So the people who most depend on their savings to perform are the ones the system charges the most. Picture your plan administrator handing you a document with the heading, "Warning. This account may significantly reduce your retirement savings." You sign it, you file it next to your car warranty, and you spend the next 30 years confident that someone else is managing the details. That document exists. That is precisely what the law requires them to disclose. And the system has correctly calculated that most people will take no action in response. Welcome back to the company store. Now stay with me, because lock number 2 is the one that sounds unremarkable until you see the total. As of July 2025, nearly 31.9 million 401k accounts are considered forgotten or abandoned, holding a combined $2.13 trillion in assets. 3.5 million accounts were left behind in 2023. 4 million were abandoned in 2024. Another 4.2 million are projected to be forgotten in 2025. The average balance of an abandoned 401k has risen substantially, now reaching $66,691, $2.13 trillion, sitting in accounts accumulating fees owned by people who don't know they still own them. Here is how the mechanism operates. When you leave a job without rolling over your 401k, the plan classifies you as a terminated participant. Once that designation applies, your former employer may stop subsidizing administrative fees, shifting that entire cost onto you. Over time, these compounding charges, combined with underperforming or default investment allocations, steadily eat into returns. Your account defaults into a conservative fund, frequently a stable value or money market option, and sits there generating something like 1.5% annually while the broader market triples. Forgotten 401k accounts could cost an individual more than $500,000 in lost retirement savings across 30 years. In a worst-case scenario, $500,000 from a single abandoned account. Not from poor investment selection, not from a market collapse, from failing to complete a rollover form. Workers born between 1957 and 1964 held an average of 12.4 jobs before age 54, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 12 jobs. 12 potentially orphaned accounts. 12 separate fee structures accumulating on money the owner doesn't realize is still sitting there. And the system offers no automatic consolidation, no proactive notification, no centralized tracking dashboard. Each plan has its own administrator, its own rollover process, its own rules. The ongoing complexity surrounding 401k rollovers has driven relentless growth in missing retirement accounts. Since every 401k provider determines its own process, there is almost no room for uniformity or standardized protocols when transferring retirement assets. The Department of Labor launched a Retirement Savings Lost and Found database in December 2024. That's correct. The database designed to help Americans locate their own retirement money launched just over 1 year ago. Before that, no centralized mechanism existed to help you recover what you'd misplaced. There is a phrase in business for a product design that profits directly from its own complexity. I'll let you apply the appropriate label here. Now here's a thread I want to bring back into focus. The person who launched the first plan in 1981 didn't engineer the broader shift that followed. The transition from defined benefit pensions to defined contribution 401k plans was orchestrated by corporate executives who recognized that eliminating pension obligations would remove a massive liability from their balance sheets, while simultaneously generating enormous fee revenue for the financial industry. The individuals who made that decision were in their 40s and 50s during the 1980s. Their own previously earned pensions remained intact and unaffected. This is the moment I need you to pause and genuinely absorb. The executives who drove the shift from pensions to 401k plans made that decision from within a system where they were personally already protected. They already had their pensions secured. They didn't need the 401k to work for them. They needed the company's balance sheet to improve. And they needed Wall Street to gain access to a steady new stream of retail investment capital. Both objectives were achieved. The workers who came after them inherited a system designed not for their financial security, but for the benefit of the people who designed it. One generation's exit from financial risk became another generation's locked gate. And now, lock number 3. This is the quiet one, the one that can undo everything else, even if you executed every other step correctly. Sequence of returns risk is the danger that the specific order in which an investor experiences market gains and losses, not the average return itself, will determine whether their portfolio survives across a multi-decade retirement. The identical series of annual returns, arranged in a different sequence, can mean either a comfortable 30-year retirement or financial ruin by year 18. Let me make this tangible. 2 identical investors, same total saved, same portfolio composition, same average annual return across 30 years. One retires during a strong market year, one retires during a weak one. An investor still in the accumulation phase who contributes $1,000 per month and experiences returns of 7%, 7%, then 7% ends up with the same final balance as one who experiences negative 10%, 7%, then 24%. As long as no withdrawals are being taken. A retiree drawing $40,000 annually from a $1 million portfolio does not have that flexibility. Once withdrawals begin, losses become structurally more damaging. Because you are selling assets at depressed prices and have less capital remaining to recover when markets eventually rebound. If the market falls 20% in your first year of retirement, your portfolio drops while your withdrawal still occurs. Your next withdrawal now represents a larger portion of what remains. That compounding effect can cut years off your retirement runway. The historical case study here is brutal. A person retiring in 2000 encountered what may be the harshest sequence in the modern era, the dot-com collapse from 2000 to 2002. A 49% drawdown in the S&P 500 followed almost immediately by the 2008 global financial crisis. A 57% decline. 2 devastating bear markets within 9 years of retirement created a lost decade in which a 4% inflation-adjusted withdrawal strategy left that retiree with roughly 60% less wealth by 2010 than the same strategy delivered to someone who retired a decade earlier. 60% less wealth. Not because of what they invested in, not because of fees. Because of which year the calendar placed them in when they stopped working. This is where the 401k model breaks down at the fundamental structural level. During the accumulation phase, while you are adding money, the order of returns is largely irrelevant because you are purchasing more shares when prices are lower. But during the distribution phase, when withdrawals begin, the order is everything. You are selling when prices are low, locking in losses, and the shares you liquidated to cover living expenses in year one of a downturn are no longer available to participate in the eventual recovery. Workers retiring into a declining market withdraw funds for everyday expenses, selling low and permanently removing assets that would otherwise have recovered. It can devastate a portfolio to the point of no meaningful return. The 401k system has no structural answer to this reality. Your target date fund gradually shifts toward bonds as you age, which reduces some volatility, but it cannot predict whether you're retiring into a bull market or the opening year of a multi-year contraction. The standard financial planning guidance: save 15%, maximize contributions, maintain diversification, is entirely sound during the accumulation years. It is nearly silent about what happens at the transition point. The system instructs you to build the balance. It offers very little guidance about protecting it once withdrawals begin. That isn't an oversight. It marks the boundary of what the system considers its responsibility. This is where I want to show you what these numbers look like for a real person. Meet Marcus. Marcus is 52. He works in mid-level operations at a distribution company and earns around $75,000 annually. He has been contributing to a 401k since age 27 and has changed employers 3 times. He currently believes he has saved roughly $200,000. What Marcus actually has, his current account, active for 8 years, holds approximately $130,000. An account from a position he left in 2016 holds roughly $51,000. But it has been sitting in a stable value fund since his departure, growing at around 1.8% annually while the broader market tripled. And there is a third account from a job he held in 2009 that he has genuinely forgotten about. Based on average balance data for abandoned accounts, that third account likely holds somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000. The average balance of a left-behind 401k has risen to $66,691. Marcus actually has closer to $230,000, more than he believed. But his current plan charges 1.1% in total fees. He is at a small company, and his forgotten account is slowly leaking value. He has 13 years until his target retirement date. The Department of Labor's own figures show that a 1% fee difference over 20 years reduces an account by 28%. On $200,000, that represents approximately $56,000 in compounding growth Marcus will not see. Marcus's projected retirement balance at his current trajectory, somewhere between $310,000 and $360,000. What he needs to sustain his lifestyle across a 30-year retirement, somewhere above $900,000. The median 401k balance across Vanguard's nearly 5 million participants stood at $44,115 at the end of 2025. At a standard 4% annual withdrawal rate, that translates to approximately $147 per month. $147 per month from the median American's retirement account. That is not a retirement income. That is a rounding error. Now here's something else unfolding in real time beneath the encouraging headline numbers. In 2025, 6% of participants enrolled in Vanguard 401k plans made hardship withdrawals from their accounts, up from 5% in 2024 and up from an average of roughly 2% before the pandemic. People are not rating their retirement accounts because they're irresponsible. The average hardship withdrawal was approximately $5,400, with medical bills, rent, mortgage payments, and avoiding eviction cited as the primary reasons workers were accessing their retirement savings early. A $5,400 withdrawal at age 30, assuming 7% annual growth, would have expanded to roughly $41,000 by age 65. The long-term price of short-term survival is enormous. And this is where the behavioral trap closes on itself. The people with the lowest balances, the ones who most need the 401k to function, are simultaneously the most likely to face financial emergencies that force early withdrawal. Workers disproportionately impacted by income instability are hourly wage earners. Vanguard's data shows that 42% of hourly workers cash out their 401k entirely when changing jobs. They pay a 10% early withdrawal penalty on top of ordinary income tax. The account is gone. The compounding clock resets. They begin again years later with nothing but institutional advice to maximize their contributions. More than half of American households, 54% ease, report holding no dedicated retirement savings at all, according to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances. That is the defining data point. The system moves tens of trillions of dollars through 401k structures every year. The headline figures all suggest forward progress. The median balance tells an entirely different story. And the hardship withdrawal rate climbing year after year reveals a system that is consuming itself. The same people who need the structure most are the ones most likely to break the glass during an emergency and find the account nearly depleted when they do. Welcome back to the company store. One final time, more than half of American households report no dedicated retirement savings. Roughly 54 million private sector workers have no access to workplace retirement benefits at all. And for those who do have access, median balances for the generation nearest to retirement sit at approximately $185,000 against a stated need of $1.46 million. The system is not failing by accident. It is succeeding at what it was actually optimized to do, converting American payroll into management fee revenue at scale, while offering just enough tax benefit to make participation politically sustainable.